Hello everyone, welcome to Out of Spec Guide. My name is Max and today I'm here to present a very interesting dilemma we have in 2024 in Tesla's lineup among their two most popular models. Behind me on my left is a Tesla Model 3, and this is traditionally been the cheapest Tesla. This year it got a refresh, and Tesla has, as of me filming this, very recently hiked the price up on the long-range variant of this by $1,000. So it got just slightly more expensive, and it lost tax credit status this year. However, it got the refresh. So the one behind me, slightly older. However, most of the cargo and dimensions are pretty much identical, so it's what I have access to today. It's what I'll be using. I've spent time with a refreshed Model 3, so I'll comment on any differences there. However, the Tesla Model Y is actually the best-selling Tesla in the US and in the world because it's only a little bit more expensive than the 3 and has more cargo and such. And so most people are willing to take that compromise, especially a lot of you rideshare drivers and people ferrying passengers around. Yeah, it's not as sporty, it's not a sedan, such and such, and it doesn't have all of the features of that refreshed Tesla Model 3. However, this year, it still keeps tax credit status crucially. So that means that effectively the Model Y has become cheaper than the Model 3, whether you're comparing rear-wheel drive base model or the long range, or you can even get a performance Model Y as long as you're eligible for the tax credit for cheaper than you can get a long-range new Tesla Model 3. So that's a pretty strange place to be. And you can't, by the way, get a performance Model 3 at the moment. So let me break down all of this weirdness between Model 3 and Model Y right now, two of Tesla's most important vehicles, their two most important vehicles, inarguably, and help you decide whether you're facing this dilemma of you're not really sure which way to go. I'll help you break it down with differences between these two vehicles and where they sit in 2024. Let's get into it. Let me begin this by first off just saying these two exact vehicles I have in front of me are not like for like today, and they're just what I have access to. So this has been loaned to us courtesy of our friend Brandon Tesla Flex on YouTube and TikTok and Instagram. This is his wrapped, as you can see, Tesla Model Y, not a stock color, it's a dual motor, whereas this Model 3 is a rear wheel drive. However, they're both very recent. They came out in the last year or two, these two ones, and so they represent basically most of Tesla's modern features between these two models. So we're gonna be using them today as props. However, don't take this as a like-for-like comparison. Of course, we're not doing any efficiency or performance or testing or any of that. However, I've spent time with several different Model 3s, several different Model Ys, so I am well qualified to talk about differences in suspension, cargo, and I'll demonstrate whatever I can when it comes to cargo and interior today. But let's just talk dimensionally about these vehicles. They're very similar. Model Y is ever so slightly longer. This still applies with that new Model 3 refresh, and noticeably taller. It's about 6 inches taller, but only one of those 6 inches is dedicated towards more ground clearance. So yeah, if you're worried about, off-roading, Model Y theoretically may be a little bit better. Neither of these vehicles are great off-road. And the Model Y really gives most of its increased height towards the cabin, which we'll get into in this video, and making space more comfortable for the passengers. The other thing about Model Y is its wheels are larger than Model 3 in every spec. So Model 3 had 18, 19, and 20-inch wheels. Today it only has 18 and 19 because you can't get the 20-inch performance model, with 20-inch wheels. So you can get these 18-inch ones like my colleague Ryan's car has here, or you can get 19-inch ones if you get the model, if you upgrade your wheels. With the Model Y, you get a choice of 19, 20, or if you get the performance model, 21-inch wheels. So because they're larger wheels, the sidewalls on the Model Y are actually a bit narrower, meaning there's a little bit less tire. And just the way I've noticed Model Y suspension has been tuned, it's a bit of a firmer ride, especially with the refresh of this Model 3, which I've driven and been in, being noticeably more softer and compliant. So if you care about comfort, especially for the front seat passengers, I think the Model 3, especially the new one, has a big leg up. However, the Model Y is a practical beast. It's a hatchback, crucially. It has a lot of rear seat cargo. So that's kind of what we're dealing with here. We're dealing with the Model 3 being a sedan, if you like that, marginally more efficient. We look at rear-wheel drive for rear-wheel drive. The Model 3 gets 12 miles more of EPA estimated range, 272 versus 260 in the Model Y. If you compare the long-range specs, I believe there's like a 20-mile range difference. In the real world, those roughly bear out. The Model Y is marginally less efficient, as you would expect, being a larger vehicle with a bit of a bigger aerodynamic profile. The new Model 3 is very similar in efficiency from all of the preliminary testing and things we've seen. Same identical battery and motors to the old one. So Model Y long range is actually a bit slower 0 to 60 than Model 3 long range. However, you can still get the Model Y Performance, and you can't buy new in the US a Model 3 Performance. I believe there still may be some inventory ones with this old body style floating around, but new, you can't buy them, right? And so that means that assuming you're eligible for the federal tax credit and you're not over the income cap, you get a Model Y Performance, and because that tax credit can be applied as a rebate at the point of sale, you effectively are spending less money than for a Model 3 long range. And the Model Y Performance will do 0 to 60 in 3.5 seconds, whereas the long range Model 3, the new one, will do 4.2 seconds. I believe you may be able to purchase an acceleration boost for the Model 3 and get that down to 3.7 seconds, I think. However, the Model 3 long range is still not going to have the sportier wheels, the carbon fiber spoiler, the bigger brakes the performance model in the Y would have. Again, the 3 used to have a performance model, but it's currently gone from the lineup. Presumably Tesla is working. Actually, they've announced that they're working on a new performance, but it isn't out yet. So currently, right, you can't get that Performance 3. So weird as it is, the Y, which you'd think would be as a crossover, the less sporty vehicle, actually potentially could be the more performant one. Now, do people care about having the spoiler on their Y and larger brakes and all those things? I don't know. But if you do, the Y has those options. It also crucially has track mode, because if you get the Performance, you get track mode with lap times and the ability to change handling balance, all that. You can't do that on the 3 no matter what now if you're buying one new. So that's a big difference. But most of you, right, care about the cargo, the dimensions, all of those things. So let's open these cars up, get the front, trunk, rear seats, everything open. Let me sit in each one of them and tell you about their usability. All right, I've exploded both of these cars open to show you how much cargo space they have. And let's just start numerically. You can even just see it on the specs page on Tesla's site. Model Y has a lot more cargo capacity. It's like 65 cubic feet, I want to say, compared to 25 cubic feet in the Model 3. So roughly 40 cubic feet more. And a lot of that is down to the boot and the hatchback, which we'll check out. But first, let's look at the front trunks. So this is the rear-wheel drive Model 3, keep in mind. So this is as large as Model 3 front trunks get. I believe they're actually all around the same size now, but the Model 3 refresh has basically the same dimensions in its front trunk. You can see, useful space, larger than some vehicles' front trunks. Like I personally drive a Polestar 2, which has a tiny, minuscule one. This is massive compared to that. However, the Model Y front trunk, at least looking at here right now, to me, seems a little bit deeper. Now, our friend Brandon has a lot of things stored in here, but he's also got this cargo cover. So when you consider it, I'm looking at it, yeah, it seems like it's substantially deeper in the Model Y. Now, is this the difference between like 2 suitcases versus 1 in the Model 3? No, I don't think it's that massive. However, it is just a little bit bigger. And most importantly, when we're talking about cargo in the trunk area, well, that's where the body style of these two vehicles comes into play. Because Model 3, remember, is a sedan, and so is the refresh. They haven't really changed the body. So the trunk is a little bit different. Yeah, it has an extra actuator. Excuse me, I don't have the new one today. It's basically identical. Really is. I mean, I think it maybe, it has slightly more cargo because what they've done on the new one is they punched this out a bit more to match this rear haunch. But other than that, very similar kind of space here. And yeah, you can fold down the seats, of course, and pass things through, but you don't have one kind of hatch area to fit larger, taller objects in. Under the vehicle, you actually have a fairly deep and impressive amount of space. But again, it's just a bit less than the Model Y. Because if we look at the Model Y here, Brandon Tesla Flex has, of course, his with accessories. So this is not what it looks like stock. I rolled up the cargo shelf and some other things here. But you can just see immediately still, nonetheless, you've got a lot more space here. already a Model Y, even though it hasn't been refreshed. It gives you both space in both haunches. And then of course it still has the under boot space, which you can see Brendan is using, but it's similarly deep to Model 3. And yet you also just have this longer, larger dimensionally boot area with the ability to fold the seats down 60/40 and then have this massive uninterrupted area if you need to store large things, like let's say you're transporting a TV, or just, I don't know, renovation supplies for your home. If you've just bought a new home, congratulations. Anything like that. The Model Y is just a bit more practical. And I think that's really nice. And then we have to get into the back seats, because many of you who do rideshare or who just have an occasion to transport passengers will prefer the Y. It's more comfortable to be. This is the case for both the new and the pre-refresh Model 3. The new refresh Model 3 that I've actually been in seemingly has a less comfortable back seat. Yes, I know they added a rear screen in here, but myself and my colleagues, Ryan and Colton, when we were driving that car, we all noticed the back seat seemed to be a little bit more cramped. They seem to have repackaged the car a bit differently. However, if I sit in the back seat of the existing Model 3, it's, fine. The new one isn't bad. It's just a bit more cramped. I have a bit less headroom. So if I tilt the camera around, right now in the Model 3, I have okay headroom. I'm 6'2", and I have the passenger seat adjusted normally. So legroom is fine, headroom is fine. And the new one, legroom seems to be about the same, but it seems like because of the way they've redesigned the seats in the cabin in that refresh, that I noticed in the refresh, I had to kind of lean back or like crouch a bit, because with the glass roof I had less headroom. So that really was a limiter there. But nonetheless, no matter which Model 3 you're getting, whether you get an old inventory one or the new one, this is just a bit more cramped of a space than the Model Y. The biggest thing I noticed as a passenger is that the way they packaged the Model 3, my feet are a lot higher with the footwell, because both of these are electric cars. Of course, they package their batteries in the floor of the vehicle. However, remember, right, the Model Y is 6 inches taller. Well, that manifests in a lot more vertical passenger room. And what I mean by that is you just have a more comfortable area. The footwell is a bit deeper. So legroom is actually, I find, really similar. I don't notice a huge difference. However, headroom, I think I have substantially more of, even in the old Model 3, especially compared to the new one. And I just have, my feet are a lot more comfortable. My legs are less kind of tilted up. And so as a passenger, let's say like an Uber or something, I'd feel a lot better in here. Or if my friend was driving, I'd be much happier in the back seat of a Tesla Model Y. Now, disclaimer here, again, this is not a brand new stock Model Y. This is an accessory our friend Brendan has installed here that I believe gives you a shade for the glass roof. That's actually cool. I don't know they make those. But anyhow, because he has this accessory, the roof's actually a bit shorter in places than it otherwise would be. Imagine it goes to the glass in a stock Model Y. That's basically what it does. Yeah, I find this is just a more comfortable space. Differences also, light interior in here versus the black interior spec on my colleague Ryan's car. These cars are not like for like, but imagining they are, I still just find, yeah, dimensionally, this is a wider, more open space. The Model Y, by the way, is dimensionally wider. So there's just more space to spread around. It's more comfortable. Now, if you really like that rear screen and the new Model 3 that intrigues you, you don't get it in the Model Y right now because it hasn't been refreshed. So no rear screen for controlling the climate and being able to watch Netflix and YouTube with your neck craned down if you're into that. I personally don't really like the rear screen that much, but some of you do. And so if you care about that, yeah, you're leaning towards the new Model 3. Now, the other largest functional difference in that new Model 3 is the addition of ventilated seats, and Model Y doesn't get those. So like Model 3, Model Y does get standard rear and front heated seats, which is really nice. But no ventilation, not even an option. You can't like spec the extra premium interior to get it. It's just not available. Whereas you get the new Model 3 refresh, and it actually is available. So that's a substantial difference between the two that exist now. However, it comes down to that price difference. So let me close these cars back up and then comment on just the overall value proposition these bring up the specs again, and conclude this video off for you. I've always thought of the Model 3 as a sportier and slightly lower cost alternative to the Model Y. It actually has existed for longer than the Model Y has. But this year, everything changed because the Model Y keeps that tax credit status while the Model 3 lost it. For those of you policy wonks and nerds who are curious why that is, well, it has to do with battery sourcing and entities of foreign concern in China and all kinds of things that I've made videos about on this channel you can check out. Maybe I'll put a link in the info card. But the long story is, for the moment, as of me filming this, Model Y, no matter which one you get, gets that federal tax credit. So long as you make under a certain income threshold and are eligible for the tax credit, and demographically and statistically speaking, most of you who are interested in these value-oriented cars will be, then the Model Y is just a better value. Let's talk numbers here. The Model 3, the new one, is a $38,000 starting price, and if you get the long range, it's $9,000 more expensive, being at about $47,000. The Model Y, again, nominally, is a little bit more expensive, stretching from around, I believe, 41 grand to 53 grand, but subtract $7,500, which can now be discounted at the point of sale by Tesla, whether you're buying on their app or on their website. And that's huge. That is major. Tesla makes a big deal of this on their website, as they should, I guess. The tax credit can really make a big impact. Now, I do have to mention, if you lease the Model 3, you do get the tax credit, or I should say more correctly, Tesla gets the tax credit and they'll pass it on to you in the form of lower monthly payments. So if you lease them, then the value comparison is a little more like for like, and the Model Y I think is still a bit more expensive. But generally, Model 3 is more expensive when you're buying or financing the vehicle, and that's huge. So for rideshare drivers, for anyone hauling pets and cargo and kids, I think the Model Y is a lot more appealing, even though, this is my opinion, I think it's the uglier car. It's uglier than the current Model 3, and it's uglier than the new one, which I actually like the look of a lot. The new Model 3, I'll put in pictures here again, has refreshed headlights, a bumper design, new tail lights, just a basically revised shell, and I think it looks pretty nice. I don't think it's a beautiful car, maybe some of you do, but it's nicer than the existing 3, a lot nicer than the Model Y. But the Model Y is just so much more practical. You saw how much cargo I showed you it had. You saw how much more passenger space I showed you it had. However, I do have to say, the Model 3, especially that new one, does ride really comfortably. And especially considering the fact that we're also going to be looking at smaller wheel sizes there, right, with more tire sidewall. Model 3, I think, has always rode a bit better than Model Y, especially for front seat passengers. The new one, especially so. So it's this weird kind of trade-off situation where, like, on one hand, if you're doing rideshare or if you care about ride quality a lot for your passengers, yeah, the Model Y has more space, and yet it's like stiffer, bouncier, less comfortable. I think the suspension in that new Model 3 refresh is a lot better. And so yeah, if you just have one passenger, it's you and someone else in the front seat, Model 3 is actually more luxurious to be. Again, it has those ventilated seats in the refresh, but the Model Y just still has so much more space. And let's recap also that you can get a performance Model Y. You can't get a performance Model 3 yet. And price-wise, you can get that performance Model Y, assuming you get the tax credit, still for cheaper than you can get a long-range Model 3. So if absolute efficiency and getting the most range possible, like within a margin of 20 or 30 miles, is important to you, go with the Model 3. If your heart speaks to you, like the design of it, you're willing to pay the premium for it, you just like the Model 3 more for whatever reason, go for it. I'm not going to complain. You know, it's maybe more of a driver's car still. You sit lower to the ground. I like that in vehicles. I like sedans. Most buyers don't. I think most people are going to opt for the Model Y. And that's just the case of it here. So that's my honest kind of observations and taking into account both my subjective preferences and objective realities between these two vehicles. Maybe something changes this year and Model 3 will get the tax credit back because Tesla will change battery sourcing. But where we stand today, the Model Y is just objectively a better value. You can get it to be quicker with that performance option, and you can get it to have substantially more cargo space. You can get a bigger vehicle basically for less money. Model 3, subjectively, if you prefer it, if you like some of those features, must-haves like ventilated seats or the rear screen, then, well, your decision is made for you. Also, I guess, ambient interior lighting, there's a few other small changes, but generally speaking, like when it comes to the cameras, the sensors, hardware for the screens in these cars, in them, like that technology is basically identical. similar processor, similar chipset, similar nerdy stuff going on in there. It's not like the Model Y is really going to become obsolete much more quickly than even the new existing Model 3 refresh. It's more about cosmetics and a few of those things like ventilated seats. Anyhow, I hope I haven't blabbered on too much in this video, but I hope I've given you a good basis of things to go off of. If you think I missed something, do let me know in the comment section below between Model Y and Model 3. And as always, stay tuned to Out of Spec Guide for more electric vehicle buying comparisons, advice, and all of that to come. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.